so at least.
Yes, and 1 minute, please. I will also press the record button as well in Zoom.
Robert, be careful while driving. Don't look at us.
Also press the record button as well. Okay. Hi, Lev.
We have Robert and Lev in the car.
Okay, so
everybody else
Beautiful.
stable.
If you mute both of them, then so we don't listen to the sounds of the road.
So, shall we start? Welcome to our Living Cities Earth talk. Today, we have a very interesting presentation by Serg Dmitriev, the introduction to the Sociocratic approach. So, Sergey, welcome, and please share your presentation with us, please.
Thank you. And I want this rather to be a thinking session for all of us. So while you see the things here, jump in with your questions, jump in with your thoughts, because from one side, I will present Sociocracy the way it is. From the other side, we think that Sociocracy will be a good fit for LCE, like as a motor behind how the organization is governed and run operationally. But keep those thoughts in mind, like think that, okay, maybe we will start using this and this will be the model for us, and try to see whether you have any kind of reactions on this, because and then ask questions accordingly. So I want this rather to be like we're fitting it in a fitting room, right? Before we implement, we're trying to take a look how this thing will look like on us. And of course, I mean, to go into Sociocracy fully, we might want more trainings later, because of course in 1 hour we cannot cover all of it. I will try to stay very high level today, just to show us the basic building blocks. And then there's many more details behind, but as with any other approach, how to manage the work, you don't have to start with everything. You can start with a little bit, right? We can start practicing something and then expanding the toolbox as we go. So don't be scared if you see sometimes that, oh, there's so much behind it, right? It is, but we can start slowly and we can take piece by piece. So without more talks, let's just keep it in the back of your head that, okay, we want to try this approach maybe, and ask questions so that it's not just becomes me lecturing for an hour. It's rather be a talk of all of us around the topic. All right, let's start with the why and what is this. And so this Sociocracy as an approach emerged, I would say, over time as a collaborative way of working based on many ideas, probably starting in the previous century, and at different times, different people added a lot of patterns, let's say. So it's a collection of patterns that people use in order to collaborate in groups, and kind of main things about why Sociocracy was created is that people were looking at how to handle complexity, right? And as a way of handling complexity, the idea of self-organization emerged many times in many forms. And Sociocracy is one of those kind of approaches where our work is structured with focus on effective collaboration, adaptation, resilience, and navigation of complexity through delegation of decision-making power to the people who are doing the work. And that's why I also think that sociocracy might be a good thing for LCE, because we have a group of people, a larger group of people, and then different people are interested in slightly different topics. We don't have a central authority, we don't have a central boss, we want to distribute power. And that's why we're taking a look at sociocracy. Here's the agenda, and those big building blocks that we want to talk is like, first, okay, how sociocratic organizations are structured. They are slightly structured differently. They have hierarchy, but this hierarchy is rather, it's not a hierarchy of people, it's a hierarchy of decision-making, responsibility, and accountability distributed to different pods in the organization. And then, of course, decision-making in sociocracy is based a lot on something we're going to be talking a lot on: consent rather than consensus. We might have a discussion on this. Also, in different situations, sociocracy will offer different decision-making approaches. So you don't have to do all decisions in the same way. Certain decisions can be taken by consensus. Certain decisions can be taken authority because we trust a person and we delegate decision-making power. So it kind of, let's talk about decision-making a little bit as well. And then, of course, good, resilient organization and learning organization needs different feedback loops. Let's talk about those. And then I will suggest a way forward for us, like a practical way. What are those small steps that we can take towards trying this thing on, if we want to. So again, without long talks around the principles of sociocracy, but I think we need to take a look at them just to see how well these principles connect with all the ideas I think we support at LCE. So sociocracy is about transparency and how to spread information to as many people as possible so that the whole organization, everybody who is involved, they know what's going on. Because if you want to distribute authority later, people need to have information, right? If I am to make a decision, I need to understand what's going on in the organization as a whole. Another principle is the principle of equivalence, where we want to involve people who are being affected by the decision into decision making. So if we decide on something and it touches on you, you should be part of this decision making process. Accountability, of course. So we want to take ownership to the work that we do. We want to have kind of responsibility goes together with accountability, right? So if we do something, we need to deliver results. If we decide on something, we follow up. So accountability is also built into sociocracy, which allows the organization to hopefully move forward no matter what happens, gives it resilience and gives it kind of a good push forward. Of course, consent is in the center, and consent is a way of taking decisions where, I mean, it's easier to, it's an example where it's easier to give a definition by saying what it is not. So in contrast to consensus, where we need to agree, all of us, and we ask, will you support the decision? When we need to take a decision, if I ask, will you support the decision? We start mentally in our head looking for my preferred approach. In sociocracy, we ask slightly different. We don't ask, will you support this decision? We're saying, is there anything that will prevent you from being okay with this decision. So, and it's a slightly different question, because instead of thinking what is optimal for me, you start thinking, what can I tolerate? So even if this will not be ideal for me personally, but because I support the organization and that whole group of people, and I want us to move forward, I might still tolerate this. So it's okay. It's not the ideal choice for me, but it's okay. And I can live with it. And that's why we are taking a decision. It just allows more options, and it allows to agree in many more cases than if you would be searching for optimal. Continuous improvement, needed feedback loops, and all that kind of things. We want the organization to become better and better and better over time. Effectiveness, of course, we've been talking a lot how we want to bring results, and empiricism. So instead of talking, we test, right? And I think we already, in a way, act like this in LCE. So the principles of sociocracy, I think, are very well aligned with the principles that we support in LCE already. So I don't see much of a difference here. Any comments that arise so far? Anybody?
I don't want to interrupt you, Serg, but just real quick, let me ask you about empiricism. Thank you so much for doing this wonderful presentation. I was just going to put in the chat, to what extent are intuition and sentience, the seeing without words and feeling without thoughts, that allow us to explore new paths together? How much is that? Because that's not, for me, very much the empiricist path.
Yes, I mean, it's not mentioned here, but I think when we talk about equivalence, it tells us that every voice should be heard, right? So and again, it's one of the basic things, how we act in sociocracy. We want to hear everyone. And if someone has anything on their heart, feels with their gut, intuition, whatever, this voice also should be built into the decision making as a part of consent decision making when we need to take it. So I think it includes all our inner voices. Again, if you raise this concern, it's still based on one of us mentioning it aloud. As soon as you do it, we cannot ignore it. So in a sociocratic kind of way of making decisions, we need to integrate all the voices which are present in the room. So I think that would be, I mean, this glides naturally in, because people at LCE, I don't think we keep it with us. We talk, right? We share. Thanks for, and I think it's a very important thing to double check, Alexander. So thanks for raising this concern. All right, I will go now into some organizational structures, but I will not spend much time. I want rather to have a conversation around it. So in the organizational structure in Sociocracy is built around the idea of circles. To draw parallels back, circles might be, I don't want to say departments, but they, just to bring up an analogy, right? So circle, kind of all teams work in different circles. Those circles, they have authority to take decisions. Those circles are empowered to act. Like if we trust a circle, we also give them decision-making power. They don't have to ask everybody else. They already got a permission to act and take decisions for all of us, because we think this group of people has much more or has brain power, right, to take those type of decisions. So in our own case in LCE, we already, in a way, we define those circles. Remember our Like we have a group that does outreach, we have a group that is interested in finance, we have a group which is interested in kind of general management, right? So all those groups that we already identified, those would be called circles in sociocracy, right? It's a group of people who are connected with a certain topic in mind. They all care about that thing. So, and those people who join a certain circle, they are both workers, they do the work, they are also policymakers, right? They also govern the process, how decisions will be made and what's going to happen. And a comment from Alexander in the chat, circles are like systems thinking in action. Yes, I think very good parallel to think about circles as systems thinking in action. And all circles, they have aims. The aim is like a purpose why circle exists, right? And those aims are usually expressed with something which ends in ing. So circle is doing something, right? And they have a purpose, a clear purpose for each circle, which is specific. And it starts, of course, every circle starts with this idea, with the purpose. And I will give examples now in a few seconds, how those things are connected. I also want to mention domains. So these three things, circles, aims, and domains, they kind of help to they go together. So domains are areas of influence where a certain circle controls certain domains and might take certain decisions around this domain. And if you see on the domains, when we are describing them, we describe the why behind the domain. We define the responsibilities, we define constraints. Sometimes there are kind of time constraints, budget constraints. So if we define a domain, we mention those constraints, and then we put kind of different limitations sometimes, or evaluation criteria is how we know that this domain is taken care of in a good way. And these three things, so circles, aims, and domains, they kind of create the decision-making and or decision-making base for the circle, and gives responsibility and accountability simultaneously. So here are examples of circles, aims, domains. If you think about like an intentional community of people living together, they might have different circles. Here you see some examples like condo management, outdoor living spaces, extended homes. Then you see aims on each of those domains. So if you're talking about the circle of condo management, then maintaining and improving community infrastructure is the aim, is the purpose of that circle. And then the domain is kind of the ruling area. What are they controlling? What is this circle taken care of? They will take care of building systems, of snow removal, legal and safety issues, and condo budget, right? So you see how circles, aims, and domains are connected, giving each circle a clear purpose and the area of control. Does it make sense here? All right, please stop me and jump in if you feel that kind of you need a short explanation, or if you want me to go deeper somewhere. All right, so circles, aims, and domains define kind of different areas of responsibility and accountability and allows us to move forward. I want to stress an important distinction when we talk about aims or purposes. There are different kinds of purposes, right? And I want to show how vision, mission, and aim kind of connect together. And I created this kind of phrase which might help us understand the difference of all these things, because all of them are about the direction and about the future, but we are dreaming of a world where it is true that something happens, and that something, like a view of a world, or a different view, a better view of a better world 10 years from now, that's the vision part, right? We are dreaming of that type of a world. And then we work to do something, and this do something is our mission by, and then an explanation, very concrete explanation, what do we actually do, right? And I tried to put it on LCE here. So, and again, this is just a try. Don't tell me I got it. We need to polish something like this for ourselves. I just tried to show you how this might work with those aims. So my purpose was to explain how aims work. So if we are dreaming of a world where people live healthy, happy lives in harmony with each other and with nature, that's the vision, right? Happy people living together. And then we work to connect 10,000 cities and 1 million leaders on Earth. This is what we are doing. This is our mission. Hey, let's connect those cities. Let's help those leaders. And then and we define, and here, this is very fluffy. It needs to be more specific, ideally, but we offer them education, maps, processes, tools, technologies, and resources. So I took our kind of the phrase that we already have in LCE and tried to split it into those vision, mission, aim. How's that sound? All right, good. Then we are continuing. So let's talk now slightly deeper around the idea of a circle and what is happening inside each circle. So we have members, of course. Each circle has members. Good size of a circle would be as with kind of Scrum teams or any other teams. It's the size of a good team, right? We're talking probably between 3 and 9. Yes, you can have larger, and it still works. But remember, because we delegate decision-making power to those circles, the more people we have in a circle, the harder it will be to arrive to a shared conclusion, shared decision, and also will take longer time to agree on those things. So usually we try to split into small working groups, and small groups connected create a network structure of circles, and allows us to move fast forward by taking decisions forward because we delegate to a certain group of people. They don't have to wait for anybody else, right? So circles consent to every new member joining. So we have kind of an election or approval, and it makes sense. Imagine if you're on a team and you're presented with a new member for your team. It kind of makes sense to ask you, hey, will introducing of will this person joining this circle, will this be a deal breaker for you, right? Because if it will, we probably should not create this dysfunctional circle. Do you agree? So if there are two people who cannot work together, they cannot stand each other. And that's why this consent for joining new people, it's not like in a good traditional organization where your boss gives you a new team member and you have to work it out, right? Here, it's still needed to get a check mark from each person on in a circle that, okay, I can work with this person. Maybe it's not my best friend, but I can work with this person. No one can be forced into a circle. No one can be forced out. So there are procedures around how people join, and there are procedures about how people leave, but there is no authoritarian way of moving people in and out of circles. It's a process each time. So this is just membership inside. Then inside each circle, there are sometimes, or it could be defined. So people can be just members of a circle, but sometimes you want a role to live inside a circle. Think about a role as a collection of repeatable tasks that the circle has packaged together and assigned to a role. Why do you do this? Why do you change roles in circles? Because you don't want to have an election every time, like, hey, who's going to be facilitating in this meeting today? Or who's going to be taking this decision now? And of course, as soon as the work starts, there are a lot of operational decisions that needs to be taken daily. you don't want to have an election procedure every day for who's going to be doing it, right? So Circle pre-packages that repeating work usually into a role, and then the role has already accountabilities and responsibilities associated with the role. Think of a role as a hat. There are like a bunch of hats living inside a circle, and people can be chosen to fill those roles. So when I come to work in this circle, I pick up a hat, I take it on me for a while, for a couple of hours. And while in those 2 hours, I am filling out that role and I'm doing those tasks which are associated with this role. And of course, each hat can only be worn if I have taken this hat. It's only me now with this hat. But I can wear many hats, right? I can try this hat on and I do some work and then I put it aside. I take another hat, I work. So I can be working in different roles in a circle. But at any moment in time, only one person wears a certain hat in a circle. And we select people into roles, and usually we set a term on it. So we say, okay, John will be acting in this role for a year. And then there is re-election at the end of that year. So there is, for most of the roles, we typically have an election process and then a certain term, and then people kind of keep those roles for the term. And in Sociocracy, there are 4 specific roles which are defined already, like out of the box, you get 4 roles default. The role of a circle leader, because someone needs to make sure, like pay attention to operations of the circle in relation to its purpose. Remember, each circle has a purpose. It needs to move forward. And it's so important that the circle moves forward towards its purpose that there is a specific role, circle leader, which looks that my circle actually is moving forward, right? And there is a role of a facilitator. So each circles typically take decisions by running meetings. They do work as well, and sometimes facilitator is needed. So in most meetings, in order to stay productive, and there's a certain process for election, there's a certain process for decision-making in different situations. So Sociocracy suggests to have a facilitator in each meeting. Another role which is given to us default is a role of a secretary. We need to take notes during the meetings. We need to keep records of those notes. In order to take decisions in the future, we need to know about the past, right? So what happened in the past, and that's why the role of secretary is there. And last role number 4, is the role of a delegate. So all those circles that we have in the organization, they are something which is called double linked. Double linked means that each circle is connected to some other circle in the organization, at least one other circle, like organs in the human body, right? You have a heart, but heart is connected to bloodstream, right? And then you have lungs, and they are connected to something else. So each organ at least connected to one other part, right? So that we stay together in one piece. The same thing applies here. And circles are connected 2 ways. So leader, remember the leader that keeps attention on moving my circle and purpose of my circle forward. So leader is present in, like, if we need to represent this circle in a larger circle, or the parent circle, the leader will typically be a connector, but leader can imagine that we are in a circle and we decide to delegate certain authority. So we create a sub-circle. So we have a marketing circle, and from marketing circle, we create a sub-circle, which is called social media. When we create a sub-circle, we will also create a leader for that circle and a purpose. So when circle gets born, and this leader is kind of representing the big idea. So we have this big idea, we have this purpose, the leader takes it. So this is a link from the top to the bottom if we can call those circles, they're not necessarily top and bottom, but from parent circle to the kind of child circle, and the leader represents parent circle in the child circle, but then we choose a delegate of each circle, which will represent the circle to the parent circle back. So there's always this, that's why it's called double linking. So from the larger circle to the smaller one, there is a leader. From the smaller one to the larger one, there is a delegate. And this way we have two people knowing usually what happens in the circle above, and two people knowing what happens in the circle below. And if you need to take a decision on a larger topic, you don't have to invite the whole circle or all other circles which are involved. You can, it's enough that you call two people from each circle, and this guarantees that the whole organism is informed about what's happening, because those people will be taking the information back. So it's like Lev mentioned, the idea here is that I would say in Sociocracy, all people are leaders. So there is no one person taking decisions. So and those two people, they are not co-leaders. I would not call them co-leaders. I mean, in Sociocracy, every circle member is a co-leader. So everybody is a co-leader. And I think this is why also Sociocracy fits so well with us, because we are looking at all of us as co-founders of this beautiful organization. So those are circle roles, specific circle roles that you get default. I'll skip the slide. You guys can take a look at. So there are circle roles, those that I just mentioned, leader, facilitator, secretary, and delegate. There are also operational roles. Remember that we choose. It's a packaged thing. I will send the presentation later. We don't have to talk about it now. And next topic for us is Sociocracy splits clearly governance and operations, which makes a lot of sense. So, before I move on, Alexander posted a question in the chat. Let me look. Can there be shared roles? So it's each role can be. So think about again the role as a head, right? So you want clear description of what the role is able to do, like what this role controls, what kind of decisions. So in a way, we delegate decision-making power from a circle. So decision-making power around certain topic is packaged, pre-packaged into a role. And we put this role as a head on a table. And then, so over time, anybody can be trying those heads on. So in a way, if you have an interest in that role, you can try it on. But just in order to keep some kind of consistency, we assign different terms to how long people keep those roles, so that it doesn't become a forever lasting. So we choose you as a circle leader, and then you stay circle leader forever, right? We want to have a confirmation, like re-election at least, right? So it's like, can you be a president twice? Yes, you can, but you need to go through election process again, right? And so in a way, it's not like I would call it a shared role, but over time, different people can try different roles. But as soon as role is defined and the head is there and the election has been done, then it's that person that takes care of that role. All right, so separating governance from operations. So in simple terms, operations is when we do the work, right? We do the work. We need to do something, I don't know, we are baking bread and the work needs to be done. When the work is being done, it's operations. Governance is making decisions about how the work is done, right? And those two things are separated. We need to decide every day when we work in Sociocracy, we need to decide, is this operations? In this case, it just needs to be done and we do it. Or is this something that we need to take a decision on In this case, it belongs into a governance process, which is different. And so we have always those two things happening at the same time, and people at any moment in time, we're evaluating, okay, is this operation or is this governance? Is this operation or is this governance? And we separate always all the work that we do in those two big chunks. Of course, with governance, we talk about decision making. With operations, it's just doing. You don't have to think. Just do. It's done because decisions already have been taken. But the governance piece is the piece where we do decision making. And Sociocracy gives us different options. Sometimes we decide in a governance process that it's much better to delegate decision making to the role, right? This role can take these decisions, and one person decides. You don't have to ask us. We already give you permission to take that type of decision, right? So don't ask anybody. Just do it in your operations, right? Sometimes we, again, on the governance meeting, we decided some decisions might require a majority, and we will kind of fix that as a decision. And in those cases, people will be voting. Sometimes we might say consensus is needed, I don't know, to close down LCE or whatever, I don't know. But consensus is where it will require a lot of work and a lot of struggle, because a lot of people will suddenly be involved and they need to be happy with the decision. And then, of course, Sociocracy gives us consent, and consent is used on most of the policy decisions, because remember, consent is I can live with it rather than it's my ideal choice. And of course, the number of options available to us is much broader if we think I can live with it rather than if I think, oh, this is the ideal choice for me. So this is governance, operations, decision making. Again, high level. Any thoughts that arise here? Are we doing good so far? All right. So let me talk a little bit about consent. And when there is consent, there might be an objection, right? So remember, there is an ideal. So let me draw this. So this is ideal decision for me, right? Then we have this broader range, which is I can live with it. But then there is this objection zone, right? Everything outside. I can't live with this. So if, in order to translate to something simple, let's say I am a vegetarian dude. So ideally, I love broccoli and I would like to have it now. But then I come to a cafe and they say, sir, we don't have your favorite broccoli. We have whatever, a banana. Nah, I want broccoli now. I don't want a banana, but do you have broccoli? No. Do you have anything else? Oh yeah, we have meat, right? So in this case, banana is a good choice for me. So, okay, I say I can live with a banana if you don't have my broccoli, but eating meat is a no-go for me. So not an option, right? I object. And consent decision-making is based on objections, because people need to clearly object when something which is suggested. So remember, we are taking decision. We are in the process of making decision. The proposal is being made. So we have a proposal in front of us. Each person starts thinking, if I see any reasons how whatever is suggested will harm us as an organization, will harm my circle, will prevent my circle from achieving its aim, its purpose, I need to raise an objection. So if you think that this thing gonna damage us, right, you need to object and tell us, guys, I think that this, whatever is suggested, gonna harm the organization gonna harm the purpose of our circle, maybe, this is where you need to raise an objection. Objections are looked at as gifts in sociocracy, right? So when I tell you that, okay, meat is not an option in my case, you learn something about me. You learn something that is important to me, right? And the same way in the organization, when we raise an objection, objection is taking like, okay, great, this thing actually might hurt us. We need to work around that thing, right? We need to integrate, we need to find, we need to amend the proposal, we need to change the decision so that this concern is taken care of, right? So we are trying to integrate all objections that were raised into the decision-making process, so that the final decision is better. And there is, of course, a certain process how we resolve objections. I will not go deeper, but it's a formal process. It's a step-by-step thing how to do this integration of objections into decision-making. And at the end, you get something which we call, it's not either or, it's both and more, right? So, which is, again, I think that's why Sociocracy is so powerful, because it allows us to move forward by including all those kind of all those important objections into the final decision. Talking shortly about feedback loops. Of course, in the organization, we, like in every organization, ideally, we have different feedback loops built in on a daily basis, on weekly, monthly. So when we think feedback loops, we think governance meetings. Of course, they are a way of feedback loops where we take decisions, reevaluate all decisions. Again, all decisions, most of decisions that are taken in Sociocracy, they also come with a term, so expiration date, right? We take this decision and here's an expiration date. We need to take a look again at this decision 1 month later, or half a year later, or a year later, which allows us to kind of reevaluate whatever is being taken like decision on. We come back to this and reevaluate a certain period of time later. We do peer reviews here. So circles regularly ask for feedback from other circles. Hey, we are doing kind of, we have been operating for a while. Please give us feedback. And there is, of course, a certain process built in how to ask for that feedback and how this peer review is done. In Sociocracy. And again, here, in a very important thing that I think Sociocracy carries, it's called, this pattern is called artful participation. So at any moment in time, everybody, every member of every circle thinks that in this moment in time, am I making the best contribution possible? And sometimes making this best contribution possible actually means going against whatever is going on here, right? Hey guys, let's stop, and stopping and pausing and rethinking is also this artful participation. Sometimes you need to interrupt. Sometimes you need to object, right? And yes, as Lev points out, the same concept is called skillful participation in Buddhism. So these things are kind of built in. There are procedures how to run different feedback loops in Sociocracy, and we can, if we choose to implement, we can implement. We can implement those. So we come to our last part, where, like, a possible way forward, how to bring Sociocracy to us. We already discussed this. I already sent this agenda to us, I think a few weeks ago, we were discussing something and I said, hey guys, like, why not each circle that we have already? We already defined in a way circles, remember? We just didn't do it formally. We didn't say that this is a circle and this is its aim. And I think it's good to do it still, right? And we still have a chance, regardless of whether we're going to be using Sociocracy or not. I think for us and for our groups, it makes a lot of sense to define the aim of each group and what they should be doing. So I put up a simple structure, like how can each group that we already defined, if they take a meeting now and they go through this agenda, this might be a good start, because what I suggest here is simple things like, okay, the start of the meeting, this is an easy thing, we don't need to think about it, but important things here is number 4 is if we commit to using consent and rounds in our groups, we kind of define the, okay, this is a way forward, this is how we're going to be handling different decisions for now, for this meeting, right? And then we go and take decision about the purpose of each circle, the aim, the vision, and the mission. So the group together defines the whole thing for themselves, and then choosing a leader inside each group. Why not having a leader in each group in order to see that each circle is moving forward? And then all that we needed is like, okay, what's our tasks? So each circle has a bunch of tasks already, I guess, right? Let's gather this together in one place. So each circle has a backlog of work. And essentially, we don't need much else. We have circles, we have decision-making process for each circle, we have a leader in each circle. Of course, we need each circle, we'll have to choose all those circle roles. Remember, delegate, leader, facilitator, and secretary. But so we have a circle, we have some roles, we have aims and purposes, and we have a backlog of work. Those are 4 things which are needed in order to start. And then as we go, we can learn more about Sociocracy, we can learn more about different patterns, we can introduce those patterns one by one. So it can be a longer process, but it's possible to start very lightly and easy. So let's see, there's a question. Does each circle appoint one person to the main circle? That doesn't seem to be a separate role. So yes, each circle appoint a delegate. Remember, so delegate represents 2 people, so double linking. Both delegate and the circle leader will be representing each circle in a parent circle. So if parent circle needs to have a discussion, delegate and the circle leader will have to join that meeting or that discussion, because remember, each circle, this is the way how circles are connected, how the decision flows between different circles. So those people who hold the role of delegate or leader, those 2 people will have to kind of participate in 2 circles. You can join multiple circles as well. So, I mean, there's nothing that prevents you from joining multiple circles. And I think this is how we already have it, right? We already have people in, I don't know, in law or in finance simultaneously and in general management. So there is nothing that prevents a person being on multiple circles. But if you are in addition chosen as delegate or a circle leader, this will involve you visiting meetings of other circles, those circles that you are connected to. Does this answer the question, Marilyn? Good. So we have still 9 minutes. I've done my thing. And I want to invite questions for this 10 minutes. Lev, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's beautiful, and you did it in a lively voice with lots of smiles. So thank you so much. A couple of questions which came to my mind as I was applying this concept of sociocracy to our sort of LCE dynamics. Number 1, apparently we already have those 18 circles, and many people are in like 3, 4, 5, or maybe even more. So one thing, if we work full time every day, then I can sort of visualize how we could deal with all of those meetings, etc. But all of us, or most of us, we're here very part time. We have many other projects. So in order to work, even to schedule those meetings, does it mean that we'll be working 10 or 20 times slower than a regular organization with everybody employed sort of full time? Or can we find other ways to sort of speed up a little bit and make it more reasonable in terms of workload? Thank you.
Good. So let me do the following. So let me draw. I have drawn some circles. You see, I have drawn some people with heads inside those circles. I put some heads, but those heads don't have people in some circles. Can everybody see them? So there are heads lying on the floor in a circle, and certain heads are picked up by certain people. So when there is a head and a person, the head is energized, right? This role is actually doing something while the person is there. But this person goes away now, right? The head is sitting on the floor. So all those, you see the circle on the left side, which is like two empty heads, no people there. There's no energy in that circle, right? Nothing moves forward. Why? Because there's no living person there with the head on doing any work. So my answer to Lev is that Sociocracy doesn't care how much time each person is working for the organization, which is, I think, again, why it makes it a good fit for us. When people are present, you can pick up the head and do some work. Even if you have 15 minutes per week, but you pick up a head, you do some work for those 15 minutes, and you put the head down. So for 15 minutes, a circle was energized and moving forward. And then it's dormant again because no people is currently having any head on, right? But there is a head of a leader sitting on the floor somewhere as well. And when the leader takes the head in his 15 minutes, the leader looks around and reflects. For how long has all these heads been laying around here? What is the progress of my circle towards the purpose? Is this enough? Does this serve the organization well? Is my circle making enough progress? And this, like as soon as the leader's head is energized, even for 15 minutes, you will get a feedback, right? You will get a signal. And the leader, that's the job of a leader, to see that the circle moves forward, and the speed at which it needs to be moved forward can be agreed on, right? We can put, remember when we say domains, when we define domains, I can actually go back to that thing. Domains here. When we say domains, we can have, let me show you, we can have evaluation criteria here, which says something about the speed of this circle and of this domain, like what needs to happen. How do we know that we are actually moving forward, right? And the leader looks at those things, and the leader will have to react. So if the circle isn't moving, it's the job of a leader to raise it to a parent circle and to start a discussion what happens. So the answer, Lev, is no, we don't have to have people full-time working, but from the other side, there is some accountability built in that prevents circles from being dormant for too long. So if they don't do the work, if the circle is not moving forward, Sociocracy will trigger an action.
Then my second question, and then I pass it on to other colleagues. So my guess, when I look at our current circles and they see that there are me or somebody else who participates in 5, 6, or even maybe more circles, and it's very unrealistic that this person will be able to actively participate in all of those, and for them to keep, the pace necessary for the whole organization to fulfill our mission and aims, etc., etc. Then I see two things. Number one, we'll have circles where there is not enough energy. So basically, we'll have to source to bring in other people who are not yet in the organization. And those are just wild guesses, the hypothesis. So here the reason for bringing in other co-founders is not only to extend the circle of resources for external action, but also to increase the energy for internal actions. So if we see that, for example, a legal or finance or fundraising, whatever, any circle doesn't have enough regular activity, right? A couple of months from now, then we definitely need to look for, if we have budgets, then for regular employees. If we don't have budgets, then for co-founders or other volunteers, etc. But look for them specifically that they would have profile, interest, and the ability to regularly move one of those tasks forward. Does it make sense? So it's
it makes perfect sense. Yes, and it's in a way how Sociocracy works, right? It guarantees in a way that no part of the organization is not functioning for an extended period of time. And imagine a human body where heart stops beating for a while, right? And doesn't beat and doesn't beat and doesn't beat. And then there's like brain kicks in and says, hey, you better start beating. Marilyn.
Yeah, thanks. So this is building on that. So essentially, the groups that we've already identified, one of the things we have to ask them to do if we want to proceed ahead with this is to take on the responsibilities of a circle and find those 4 roles. And it sounds like if they can't or not willing to do it, they're not really a constitutionalized circle. They're just a bunch of people who want to have a conversation, but not actually activate the sociocracy outcomes.
So I can make a comment here. So imagine we have this, let me use some colors here. So I painted one circle yellow. Can everybody see it in the bottom left? So imagine that in this circle, this circle is called marketing, just to give it a name. And marketing circle becomes a little bit overwhelmed with work around posting things on Instagram, and they decide to post on all of those social networks. They have a lot of marketing activities, right? And posting to social networks is becomes a huge thing for them. They decide to spawn a new circle. They delegate social media into a new circle. And when the circle is formed, they will put the aim, right? It's all coming from the parent circle, right? Imagine the marketing circle has, 10 people now. They become overwhelmed with work around social media. They define an aim that, hey, actually posting to all social media and keeping social media alive is what the aim of this circle is. They will name a leader from the top, right? So from the parent circle, the leader is created and the aim is created. The leader takes the aim. So essentially we created a hat of a leader already. We defined a circle, and we spawn this person out with the name saying, now you take care, right? Your circle needs to take care about this domain. The domain is defined. You have control over Facebook, Instagram, whatever, certain networks that we have. Start acting. So now that leader, it's the job of that leader when his hat is on. This leader might still be available for 1 hour per week, right? Or 1 hour per month. But when this leader shows up, takes the hat and evaluates, okay, is my circle powered enough, right? Or not? But you have your resources, right? Constraints. So if we look on the right side, there are some constraints of this circle. Like, hey, you have that budget, if you have, right? You have whatever, $10,000. You have certain resources, time, whatever, and based on these constraints and what the leader can only do so much based on all the things, how the domain is kind of delegated, what decisions are made, but it's still the job of a leader to start moving, right? And this leader will or can, right, initiate like, hey, I need more people here. Do I have resources? If you have resources, you go and do it, right? If your budget says 10K and you found 3 volunteers and 1 paid person, you do it. You don't need to ask anybody for permission because it's already, when we were delegating to you, we defined your domain, we defined what kind of decisions you can make, and then it allows the organization to move faster. And this leader will have to do what's possible with the resources that are given. I don't know if that answers the question, Marilyn.
So it sounds like with that example, thank you for it, the social media leader might start off as a single person in that circle and then decide that they want the other 3 roles there in order to be able to actually expedite the aim.
Yep. So as a leader, I see that it's not enough. My time is not enough, right? I don't put enough time into this circle. I don't have enough time to do the working. We need to be posting, and I'm a leader. I don't have my time as in that, like it's not available. My time is not available, right? In that size that is needed.
Right, but in order for the new circle to form, that leader has to consent in the first place to accept the job.
Yes.
Otherwise, there's no new circle form. That's
exactly. And in this case, yes, and thank you for this. In this case, the larger circle is still having their own aim, right? Not functioning well, and they still work as a catch-all. So whatever flies into that circle, they still have to handle it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's see in the chat, Lev, you posted something. Where do we keep track of all data, circles, roles, evaluations, decisions, etc.? So we were experimenting a little bit with Marina with Notion as a knowledge, kind of knowledge database, knowledge management system. I'm not saying it should stay this way, but I think Marina liked it. We can use this. We can also, there are tools, so we can choose those tools. I mean, it's even Google Doc might work if you want, but I think Notion gives us slightly more functionality. It depends also on the funding, because but again, I think, I mean, we'll find probably $15 to pay for Notion. I mean, I can pay myself. So, and if like I'm not afraid that tools gonna be preventing us from moving forward.
Alexander has a question.
Okay, Alexander, I realize we're over time, but I have a couple of questions, comments of time still. So I have time, so I can hang around. Those people, I mean, we've done the thing. We wanted to present in 1 hour, we've done it. So we are in an optional question phase. So whoever wants to hang out. I can be here with you answering questions. Those who need to run, thank you for showing up. And of course, you can run and do what you need.
Okay, well, thank you. Then let me go ahead with these things. And there, first of all, I want to just say thank you. Very clear presentation, and very inspirational too. And like Lev was saying, thank you for the spirit of engagement. So that's great. A couple of things, just observations and questions as well. I went to a Quaker college. We didn't necessarily study Quakerism explicitly, but the whole college was founded on Quaker ideals. And so quorum, consensus, the meeting dynamics were a big part of the spirit of engagement. So I'm wondering, let me ask my 3 questions and comments all together, if you don't mind, and then just move ahead.
Sure.
Consent, as you mentioned it, there are very more formal aspects in which consent is presented, and you stand outside of the consent, so you can block, et cetera, et cetera. There are ways in which to make this very formal. It's a process, and there are ways in which it is much more loose and casual as an engagement process, sort of a spirit of alignment. And I'm wondering, how is it held there? In a similar way, there are processes where some groups in the past have talked about Robert's rules of orders, and that's a very formal way of engaging. And others say, well, yes, we just want to be respectful of each other, but we're not going to be so formal about it. So I'm wondering how consent is held, one. Two, I noticed that this work that you've shared with us is so resonant with things like social systems design. The work that Bill Abernathy has done for many, many years, and this aspect of participatory systems inquiry and co-creation of future through conversation, very conversation-based future creation. That's one aspect. And the other is the work on evolutionary learning ecosystems. I'm particularly involved in that, and their vehicle for this, which is called community response circles. Even the terminology sounds so aligned with what you're doing here, community response circles. It's not explicitly sociocracy, but it works in such a similar way. I'm very inspired. So my question here is, aside from that observation, is there a sociocracy 2.0 that you see? What is the next step in sociocracy? Because it's been around for a while. You talk about sociocracy 3.0. Actually, you just put the thing on you're reading my mind. So this is good. I wanted to see exactly where you see this is going here. Thank you so much, Serg.
Well, thank you, Alexander. You see your Quakers here at 1926, Sociocracy 1.0. I mean, those are not formal, of course, names, right? So nobody called it Sociocracy back then. But the thing that you actually noticed it, and it is just a collection of patterns, right, that has been gathering over the years. And I think where are we going today, and how I already think about sociocracy this way. So Sociocracy 3.0 was defined by James Priest, and defined as an open source, right? As soon as it was defined as an open source, to me, that already given it a free way forward. Hey, it's a collection of patterns. Extend the patterns. Take the patterns that you like from, steal from everybody. Scrum, thank you. Kanban, thank you. So take from everybody, take the patterns into your work, morph into what your organization is needing, right? Build the concepts, like I see today, concepts of nonviolent communication being taken into sociocracy and being used in those organizations. So what I think is happening already, and I hope that it just continues this way, that instead of having one formal sociocracy 4.0 or 5.0, 5.1, we will have this collection of patterns around essentially around governance and operations. By borrowing different patterns, you can create exactly the type of organization that you need. And if you it might be very different organization from what everybody else has. And kind of talking in terms of spiral dynamics, maybe at those higher levels, remember, it's integrative. Like, you have the ability to build a strong hierarchy if you need to, right? But you use it as a tool, right? In this case, for this particular task, I choose to be hierarchical and build a red structure, right? But it's an option. And I think this flexibility, this kind of borrow this pattern, apply it, change it if you don't like it, expand, morph. I think that's where it's going now already. And this becomes, I mean, this gives flexibility to us. So yeah, there is no dogma, there is no true sociocracy, there is no one way of doing it already, it's already there. So we are already, there is no clear definition of, hey, do this, this, and this. It's just, hey, there is a open source package that you can install to give you a start. And then you pick, you mix, you drop, you morph the way you like and the way actually your organization is needing it rather than the way you like it. It's built, I think, in my opinion, in order to move your purpose forward, right? If I want to move my purpose forward, I am setting up a structure. I don't want it to be a club, right? Where we just having fun. And if there is progress or not, we are equally happy. This thing actually, I care about a purpose, and I want this purpose to move forward in this world. And because of this, I choose a supporting structure, which hopefully kind of helps me move forward. Yes, Alexander.
Just quick on this. What would you say are the major critiques of sociocracy, and what are its major weaknesses?
So what I observed so far, it's a learning process, right? As with everything else. If you have a process, if you have a collection of patterns, what are those patterns? How do I know, right? And so it involves spending time in learning kind of at least some basic patterns, right? So you cannot start before we agree that, okay, there is a consent, we need to know what consent is. The circle, okay, what is a circle? How do I define domains? And suddenly it becomes, I mean, it's a learning process for all of us, right? If we decide inside LCE, and we have over 100 people already, right? It's gonna take a while before we are well aligned on the definitions and terms and ways of working together. But again, I mean, this is in a way critique, but it's a critique probably to anything new you want to apply in any organization. Another thing that I can think of is like the need, as I see, we need skilled facilitators. So if you don't have people who have seen how this thing works, it's hard to just figure it out on your own. I mean, you will be moving forward anyway, because remember, as long as you have this plan, do, check, act cycle going on, you are still kind of moving forward. But I see that it helps tremendously in having someone who have seen it before, right? If we can inject, my dream would be to find some people who have seen that process in real life and inject it in, at least in each circle, right? If we could do this, that would be beautiful and guarantee us much faster adoption. So it might take a long time if we are figuring it out on our own. So that's also a kind of downside. Marilyn written a question: is there a time frame where we can test it? So I was thinking about there are different ways forward. We can start with forming one circle and practicing inside one circle, whoever wants, right? We can ask people to volunteer. Another way, I can reach out. There are multiple organizations who are teaching sociocracy, teaching holacracy, teaching this type of things. I can reach out to a couple of them and asking whether we can get, I mean, we're a nonprofit, and if we can recruit one of those guys into the LCE, we might have, I don't know, like we can practice internally on one circle or two circles, whatever we choose, for 6 months, for 3 months, just to see how this process works. And if those people can be monitoring what they're doing, recording their sessions, kind of doing everything in real time, like a show for us, right? We can be observing one circle doing this, and then we can make our own minds, like how does this work for them, and those people can be supported by an external consultant, pro bono, if you find one. We can do that as well. And I mean, I can also, if we're talking about one group, I can be that facilitator, I can be that person supporting us in a test. So I think there are multiple ways how we can test our way forward and evaluate what we see and whether we like it or not. Yeah, I don't think, Alexander, that's a good point that you made in the chat, that it's not a panacea, because the work still needs to be done. If we organize our circles, we have a bunch of heads laying around, but those heads are not energized by people, we still have whatever we have, right? Nothing moves forward. I hope that this will trigger conversations among us, right? If we have certain, if we define certain purposes for circles, and together we define certain jobs that, or KPIs, how to look, how to evaluate the movement of each circle, right? How to evaluate if the circle has enough energy inside. Just having this conversation regularly, like imagine once a month, we are having a whatever management circle meeting or whatever it's called, general circle meeting or purpose circle meeting or mission circle meeting. And we together think that the way it is working currently is not working, right? Then we need to act. We need to see what can be done. And even that reflection once per month might help us to focus on something, how to repair the organization. Yeah, I think what Lev suggests, like we can ask who wants to try instead of saying, hey, everybody try it. We can ask who wants to try, and those who want to try it, and then they report. Marilyn.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Serg, so I don't know if Alexander has actually had any experience with these. I'm rather suspicious that he hasn't. I personally, living at Fintor Eco Village, there's quite a lot of sociocracy here, so I could answer many of the questions relating to what does work and doesn't work. And I personally used holacracy for quite a long time for project management. So one of the principles of holacracy that I really like is the how decisions are made in the so as you ride a bicycle, you don't ride a bicycle going straight ahead, you're always course correcting. So I feel that they're both, certainly my experience with holacracy and project management is that it allows for really clear, strong consent decisions to be made, but it doesn't lock you in to one destination that can never change. You're always becoming aware of what the life conditions are that make it possible to move forward in the next few pedals of your bicycle. So I really feel that it's worth giving it a try, and I certainly would be supportive of doing that.
Thank you, Marilyn. Yeah, and there are a lot of shared patterns between holacracy and sociocracy, again, because sociocracy took all them and it tried to integrate the whole thing into. I also took like training with Brian Robertson back in 2015 on holacracy. I also like the way it works. The only reason why I'm not suggesting holacracy because it requires more structure from the beginning. It's more formal than this. All right. Anything else? Anybody who wants to share anything, or are we done?
Just very shortly. First, thank you very much. It was really, it's very inspirational and feels like a lot of creativity and the agility that is so agile. It's really very inspires a lot. So, but I had actually the same question as Alexander already put. So basically, as I understood you, there are, I understood you have already experience with this kind of organizations. So what would be the main challenges, apart of that it's new and you need someone who is experienced, but just content-wise, so with what are the challenges and where it, for example, doesn't work or something like from the challenges side?
I think we will have our own unique challenges that we don't even know about, because when I observe, like I have observed a few clients over the years, I cannot say that they all struggle with the same thing. It's very company specific and people specific, right? Depending on who we have. And I don't think, like, to be honest, I don't think for us, because it depends on the level of consciousness of the participants in the group a lot, right? So because all this is not a traditional company, this is not a traditional hierarchy. To like, as a complement to our group, I think the level of consciousness in this group is beyond what is traditionally available to a traditional organization. So I might think that it will be much easier to implement here than anywhere else.
Okay, so basically meaning that as it's a very agile structure and it's very individually built, then it comes also with these individual challenges, right? So the challenges are also, so okay.
So I'm not saying we're going to be free from challenges.
No. If you have some
challenges
that you already observed that are true for any organization that uses Sociocracy, but I understood that you have only individual challenges.
Yes, and I mean, it will be very interesting to watch us trying it, because again, as I'm thinking that it might be a very light process. I think might be because of the level of understanding and the level of, like, the way we operate. I think it's aligned so much with what is, with the principles which are built into Sociocracy itself. So my hope is that it's gonna fit us very well. And yeah, Lev.
Thank you. Maybe last comment. Why I feel it's very important that we have this conversation today is it because we bring together a lot of, I agree, very sort of advanced, wonderful, but still very different people with different histories, different experiences. And in order for us to have sort of a cohesive action, it's important to have some common ground, some common rules in terms of how we make decisions. So whether it's Sociocracy or Santa Claus ocracy or something else, but it's good to have one system, try it out, of course, correct? But then we'll have some common set of ideas about how we manage our activity, and we can discuss it, we can change it. But I feel it's a very important step. So thank you again very, very much.
Yes, thank you, Lev. All right, then I think we can stop the recording, and thank everybody for showing up today.
Thank you so much.
Marilyn, can you give us a bell? We should have started with the bell, with the chime.
It would be my pleasure. So just take a big breath and get comfortable where you are, and just notice for the space of a minute how we've been blessed with this presentation today.